I can't see your screen, sir.
Is my screen shared? Yes. Okay.
I'm not
Okay.
able to see.
Okay. Yeah, I will start. Good evening, all. This is from ISHE student chapter of Shastra. We are having the 13th G Alumni Meet series. Today we have with us Shweta from the 2014 batch with a very catchy title, apt probably to the current situation itself, given as Core or Na, right? So I am sure that in line with the energetic batch that she belongs to, she will share how she chose to be in core, what are the challenges that she faced in core, and what options or what choices or changes that one should make to sustain and develop skill sets for being in core. Thank you, Shweta, for coming to share your learning with the current students. I'm very happy that you have come, and it is a very interesting title, and I guess that you will give lot of inputs to your juniors. Yeah, carry on, Shweta.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction. So basically, I think the reason I chose this topic was I know that, given a lot of you are in last year, final year, or third year, I know a lot of you are always posed with the question, do you plan to continue or not? See, till second year, it's all sweet, nobody cares. Till fifth semester, also nobody cares. The moment you step into sixth, things start getting heated up, right? You don't know what to do. You don't know whether to go with core. You don't know what are the kind of opportunities that are out there, and what are the kind of uh, responses that you get. Okay, so I'm just here to talk and brief you about it a little because this is from my own experience. Not all of it might be relevant to you, but I hope if something is very useful, you can always go ahead with it. Yeah, so that is the reason for having taken core or not. It's because I think I can easily relate with my juniors here, uh, and because they are in a situation where they have to take a decision about it. So I pretty much had no clue. Okay, some of my batchmates were very, very good in chemical subjects. They had a clear idea of what they wanted to do. They wanted to write gate. Okay, I and along with few other monkeys here really did not know what to do, barring Ashwin maybe because he knew he wanted to write gate. That much I know about him. So yeah, some of them wanted to go abroad, but again, to go abroad, you also, I mean, there are a lot of steps for that. You need to write, TOEFL, and you need to write your GRE or GMAT, depending on however you're switching. So I pretty much had no idea of what I really wanted to do. But all of it, I mean, I had decided to go abroad and I started applying, but things did not really work out by the end of semester. So I quit. Actually, I basically quit applying in the middle of the process itself. And Apurva is also on the call here. Apurva and me joined. So anyway, the project was compulsory, and we were also looking for options outside. And over the experience that I learned, I mean, I should actually thank Naren sir for introducing us to fluidization, which nobody learns currently, and fluid mechanics. Okay, both these are like, I think it has been my favorite subject for now. And because we had fluidization, I also got intrigued a lot about fluid dynamics, how fluids behave. Okay, so we basically, Apurva and me, pretty much have done most of the internships together. So we decided to basically, go to IIT Madras and work with Professor Pushpavanam there. So we had mailed him, all those things happened, and things clicked, and we started our project by December, seventh semester end. Now, after going there, again, I mean, this was all in the middle of applying to abroad, and I mean, a few months into the internship, I realized that things are not working out, and maybe this might not be good. So, having said that, like, I also wanted, I mean, I did my own research to go abroad and look at what are the other opportunities. While doing so, I also realized that you have to choose your subject when you go abroad, right? So it could be, I mean, while we are very limited with the number of options that we have in Shastra or India, there are a lot of scope once you decide to pursue masters or PhD per se. So again, you have environmental, you have industrial engineering, you have chemical engineering. So for somebody who's from chemical engineering, the safest bet would be to go with chemical, okay? Because by then you might not even know what industrial would do or what environmental engineering, really means, and you really don't know what is the scope. So most of my friends also applied to chemical, except a few who also applied to environmental. I was one among the few who also applied for environmental. But at that point, I had no idea, because all I wanted to do was get admit. And I think it's fair, because you don't want to risk things out there. So I quit the whole of application process, and then during the same time, I was also working in the lab here as an intern. Apurva and me, both of us, and Vignesh and Varaha were also there, but on a different project. So while doing all this, I think having come from not so research oriented college, because I mean, we don't really have the scope of exploring more, going out more. It's very structured. You are taught a few things, you do the same thing in lab, and then you get your grades and all good. So having come from that background, going to IIT was a very, very different experience. We did not even know how to run experiments. We were first put on experiments. We were not even, we were very, very close. Of course, we had a mentor who supported us there, but then it was a very, very different experience. I think that learning that you get there doing your internship, I think you should just make the maximum out of it. And when we were doing, we were exposed to a lot of experimental techniques, and I think Apurva would second me on that, because those kinds of experiments you're not probably allowed to do here. Not allowed, but you basically don't have the time and the facility sometimes. So you're basically taught a few things, and you're expected to repeat all those experiments independently. So this is something I really, really enjoyed, because the independence that you get there to try things on your own, I think it's very different. And that's pretty much research. Nobody spoon feeds you. People are there to guide you. You have your professor, and then you have your seniors in the lab to guide you and all. But beyond some point, I think most of them leave it to you, because it's your own problem and you are responsible for it to solve, right? So that was a very, very good experience. And apart from that, we also did a lot of theoretical modeling. In fact, I'm not kidding, and I think even me and Apurva both realized how to use central difference, forward difference, backward difference, central difference techniques in differential equations. I think that was the first time, that was the first practical application of central difference in solving differential equations. Until then, I just did whatever was there in my notes. I just did. I had no clue of how to use it. So I really remember these things very specifically, because this was like my wow moment. Is this where I really use this? And that's the kind of learning that everybody should do, to apply it. First, I mean, more than learning, I think you should also learn where to apply it, and only then you really know, whether you have, whether you like it or not. Until then, you have no way of knowing whether you like chemical engineering, whether you should go to code. So yes, if you have a chance of doing any of these internships well ahead, and to basically discover that, okay, this is what I would like to go at the end of fourth year when I graduate, and then I go, then it's very, very good. But I think most of us are not fortunate to have such kind of an exposure. But thankfully, we did have later towards our engineering, because it was compulsory. That is definitely the reason. And we also went ahead and explored and spoke to different professors. So you might have to make a couple of shuttles here and there to talk and understand what people usually work on. But yes, but I think it's all worth it at the end. So because I did this, I was very, very intrigued by it. And even after doing this, I know that once the semester ends, once the project ends, I have to go back, finish my electives. But even then, because I had stopped my process of applying for higher education, I had no clue at how things are done, what are the opportunities there. So I am very happy to have this discussion with everybody, because unlike the exposure that the current juniors are getting, we had no clue. I had no clue till the end of my 8th semester what opportunities are there. Of course, I knew that using GATE, you could do MTech, and you could get into a few public sectors. But again, beyond that, what was there is something that I wasn't really aware of. So I'm thankful to Naren sir for having this opportunity and for having this discussion. So yeah, so once I decided that I'm not going to go abroad, I basically finished my project and my internship or the final semester project, and then I went and approached my professor for an opportunity. So meanwhile, over the period, I also interacted with a lot of seniors in the lab, who basically gave me an idea of what are the things that you can really do. And one thing I think one thing that we don't know the opportunities that exist in India is because of the lack of communication, the lack of publicity. A lot of these processes are also tedious because you have an interview, you have a written test, you have an interview, and then you do it. And most of these are not publicized, except, some of them know about it. And for me, for example, if you consider me, I had no clue what you do. So there are, this is all together a different talk, right? I think which Naren sir is going to schedule later on. But just to give you an idea that I went ahead and I approached my professor. At that time, I was still intrigued. I was still interested in pursuing fluid dynamics as one of my areas of interest. Now, after that, I realized that there are something called project associateship, right? It's not like JRF. It's not like SRF. JRS is Junior Research Fellow that goes technically through the ACAD, through administration. It's a different process. There's an interview for it. And then there's something called project associate. Internship is again unpaid, that's separate, and that's something everybody's aware of. So what you basically do in a project associate is basically all professors get a project, and you're basically put in one of these projects to work on the research part. Some projects, sometimes they fund you, which means they pay you some money. It's like a contract base, depending on however longer the project is. But while some don't pay you as well. So project associate is more like research. It's a full-time research position that you could, at some of it, you could try. And believe me, I was a project associate for about 2.5 years. And I learned a lot more chemical engineering during that, hands-on experience during that process. And it also gave me a good time for me to really think whether do I really want to pursue with chemical engineering. I was, like I said, I was a project associate for 2.5 years. So right after I graduated, I took up the associateship role. So right after I graduated, I went and I joined as a project associate, and that gave me a very, very good experience in terms of experiments, because things like microscope or think all those high-end techniques that you might really get to try, that is usually not a part of the syllabus. So unless you do research full time, then there is not much scope for you to use all those things. And you are guided, somebody teaches you how to learn, but then ultimately it's put on you, right? The responsibility lies in your hand to arrive at a result. And of course, you have frequent discussions. So in terms of discussions, I met with different professors. I collaborated actually over that period of time. I also collaborated with different professors. I not only worked with fluid dynamics, but I also ventured a lot into experiments. That's something I never did over the last few years, be it Shastra or in my internship. I didn't really do much of experiments. So that's kind of molded my skill set, and it also gave me an idea of what to expect and what not to expect, right? And there are a lot of solutions for these answers actually lied back in the textbooks, right? In all these mass transfer fluid mechanics or heat transport textbook. And the problem to the solution is fairly simple, but then to arrive at it, that's a whole different set of learning. You try and test out different methods, you understand what you're doing wrong. So one thing is, as a researcher, if you are somebody who's intrigued and interested in these things, I think you should never accept failure. And if you have failed at something, I think you should always keep trying. That's one thing I learned in my 2.5 at IIT Madras. And you basically go back. Nobody is perfect, and research is all about interpretation, your own interpretation, putting things in your aspect or what you would like to do. So most of these, this talk is actually coming after having attended a lot of defenses. So one good opportunity that I had at IIT Madras while I was a project associate is not just to do work or research. I also had the opportunity to, attend a lot of defenses, seminars, talks by other professors abroad and in over India. So this kind of, broadens your perspective, broadens your understanding, and you're also more open to ideas. And a lot of my lab mates have solved problems because they attended. So they might be like stuck at a particular place, and in spite of reading and all those things, they were still very they felt stagnant. They felt they were not moving ahead. And all these, those ideas, like, the bulb glows when you basically start attending these seminars and these defenses and these talks. So that's one very good exposure. And when you basically do things like that. So apart from project associate, there's also something called JRF. It's called Junior Research Fellow. So you first join as a JRF and then you are promoted as an SRF. But this is again a proper application-based project associate. Not an application-based approach. It's not an application-based thing. You basically approach your professor. If they have any live projects, they put you in. Again, it depends on what your interests are. Again, but to join as an to join as a JRF, you basically have to apply the applications that always get floated for the position of an SRF and JRF. So you first become a JRF and then you go on to an SRF. So these are some of the opportunities that you can try out. And during that period, I think everything is not more than 3 years. SRF, I don't remember the tenure, but project associate is the least tenure. And over that period, if you think, if any of you are interested and you would like to join like in that manner, it gives you enough time to think what you really want, right? For example, like I said, I had no clue at what I wanted, and I joined like this. And again, during these 2.5 years as project associate, I did have a couple of shots at GATE and other methods of or other work experience to join for MS or PhD. But again, things fizzled out. Which brings me to the topic. If any of you are writing GATE, I think concentrating on it at the end of while you are in college would be the better thing, because after that you are under a lot of pressure, right? You are under a lot of pressure, and you basically kind of lose touch with the subjects that you have learned. So if you're writing GATE, it's unless you are in a public sector or you are in a full-time chemical engineering job, which allows you to brush up all these topics. So it's better that you give your full during your GATE, which I didn't, and I struggled for it. Yeah. So that is the kind of exposure that I've had. And even though I have not been able to join in chemical core or stick to chemical core, I quit because I felt I was stuck at a very specific point for a very long time, and I wanted to move on. So I think it's important for everybody to note that that you cannot. It's okay to take your time to realize and understand what you want. While it is good. I did not have any source of income over the 2.5 years at being IIT. But I made sure that I did not. I was at sometimes pressured because some of my friends had jobs. A lot of them knew what they wanted to do. They went abroad, they studied. I wouldn't say I was not completely pressurized, but then I also made sure that I calm myself by saying that I'm getting the time to explore, and the experience is something unparalleled for. So I took some time to explore, and I think I would encourage everybody to do that, because I think there's no right time to figure out what you want in life. And I think that is one thing you should always be sure of, that whatever you're doing currently is something you're doing out of interest because you like, and not just because you want to earn or you are forced to. Okay. And for those of you who don't want to stick to chemical, perfectly fine. If you make that decision, it's very good. But there are always, I think a majority of the people are always in between, not knowing when to quit or to join, or you don't know what options are out there, and whether you want to join or whether you don't want to join. I think majority of them are left there in between. They just keep dangling around and they have no clue as what to do. But this talk is specifically for those who are not really able to arrive at a proper decision. And for those of you, I would really say that take your time to explore and try out different things. There are different options available. You could try something like an internship first after your graduation also, because don't get burdened by your age or by anything or by the pressure of the society. I don't think at the end of the day you should be happy doing what you want, and that's something I learned from my experience. I learned it the harder way after having been very sad about where I was. I mean, in spite of getting the experience, I think I still felt that I was stuck in a place where I couldn't move further. Okay. Now, once I finished the 2.5 years, I started looking for better options. So over my time in IIT, I done a lot of experiments, and I had a lot of data for the experiments. And we always had to resort to some theoretical modeling to basically match the experiments. And that is the point where actually I also read, I know the data science was really gaining momentum, and I was also reading parallelly on it, and I realized that if you can't really make sense of 1,000 records that I have from an experiment, then what is the use of doing those experiments if I have to fit it to a theoretical model? And that was also the point, that was like a starting point, that was a route for me to basically shift from a proper chemical engineering environment to a more a job like data science field. And I started I am still in the training division of my company, and I started first as a training as a data analyst and a training and a corporate trainer. So what we basically did was we built internal capabilities. So there are a lot of companies, chemical and otherwise, who come to us with specific uh, skill sets, right? They want to build, and because the data science, everything is now going around towards data science, a lot of companies came to us and they wanted to be trained in data science. Now, that was a very, very challenging time. I wouldn't completely say that all the concepts that are involved are very new, but some are fairly old, some are fairly new, but it just gave me a different perspective to it. So that is something I did, and I still do that. And I don't just do that for now for corporates. We do that for students. We do that for professionals who are looking to reskill and upskill themselves. I think some of you had, I didn't remember all the names. I think Lokesh and Anirudh. I don't clearly remember. I think they're still a part of, I don't know. I think they should either be fourth year. They should have graduated by now. I don't remember if they are on call. Then hi to them. I think Lokesh and a couple of them had come last year for some of these kind of workshops. So we run a lot of these workshops, and what we also do is what I actually do is handhold corporate people. They have a solution, they have a problem, they have a solution. So we don't solve the problem for them. We guide them through to the solution, and all this is basically based on your learning. So while I would have still quit chemical engineering, I did not fully leave it. And that's because even in my current job, I have a lot of people who are from the chemical engineering background, and that knowledge always comes in handy. So whenever you make a shift from academic to a more industrial based job, you might not exactly replicate or continue where you left off in your academic in an academic perspective. You might have an extended work, but you are also expected to learn different things. You are expected to adapt yourself to different kinds of problems, different kinds of techniques, and you have to basically be in pace with the kind of developments that are going on. And that is one good thing about being in a very, very industry based perspective, because my team has a mix of computer science engineers. There is a mix of statisticians. There are like full-time programmers. So the kind of team that we have is very, very diverse. And I mean, it doesn't matter, right? When you're there to learn, you just learn. So most of us are from a very, very different background, and still all that engineering that we learned from first year to fourth year is coming in very handy for me, because a lot of times you also have to cater to a very chemical engineering based or a very mechanical engineering based forms. So so somehow I've always found my route. I always made sure that I do have some exposure of chemical engineering. I'm doing some work. I might not do entirely, but yes, there are often times when I had to do those things. So I'm happy to be in actually touch with chemical engineering every now and then, even if not a lot. And a lot of these techniques and a lot of these data science is also based on the kind of courses you've had, linear algebra, statistics, and all these programming. And that is a very, very good thing that I have learned. And it is so that actually brings us to the other part of the talk that I wanted to really address. Now, is switching really good or not? So I would say that everybody should have a fair chance of what they want to do, and you should basically try out. So unless you try out different things, you will never know what you really want to do. I have a batchmate Adar who's also on the call, and I don't know, I've told him this, but I think a lot of our batch people still draw a lot of inspiration from Adar because he's been very bold. He's gone ahead, tried every other thing possible, and God knows, even none of us know how he does this. And I think that kind of risk you should be willing to take if you want to figure out what you like, right? And never stay in a place. If you feel stuck, it's always good to switch because it gives you a very, very fresh experience, a different kind of experience. And I really got that. Actually, I was lucky enough to have that kind of a quick change. But I also made sure that I was also in touch with what I earlier liked. So that kind of transition is very important. And if you really don't try out different things, I don't think so anybody can even help you out, because you are your own. You have to drive your own goals. There's nobody who can push you towards that. And I think it's important that everybody takes their time to understand what they really want to do. And coming from a very company based or industry based perspective, ours is more diverse, like I said. So we also do hire engineers. So not only engineers, we basically look for a specific set of skill sets, right? So what do I mean by skill set? I don't mean like you have to know every other language or programming language or experimental techniques, right? Because let's say if you're taking any programming language, the logic is the same. What changes? The semantics, the syntax, right? So we are looking for people who are basically, we look for people. I mean, every industry does. When I say we, it's not we. It's just from an industry perspective that uh, it's always good to have these kind of skill sets, because it comes in very handy in a longer way. Because when you basically go to an industry, nobody expects you to learn a few things, right? They just want to know if you're displaying or showing that inclination, and nobody wants you to learn it 100%. It's never possible. You just have to show some inclination, to learn a few things that's required. And because there's all these all these industrial problems are more towards the current solutions that are like more real time. People also in industries expect you to adapt. So that this is something I learned like fairly after I started working, because our parent company, so I work in Geeta Private Limited. I'm an assistant manager there, and I lead the training initiatives. My parent company is GAN Data, and they hire engineers from different kinds. They have chemical engineers, they have computer science engineers, electrical, and different people. Okay, and all of them are from different kinds of engineering backgrounds. But one thing that I clearly see is very common is the kind of skill set they bring in, right? So the kind of value they would give into the company. And I see that more than often these are all based from their learning, which goes back to their college. And yeah, so that is one good thing about having these kinds of skill sets. So never take all these courses for granted, because we did, and like sometimes we feel that we are bearing the brunt of it. So these skills are come in very, very handy in a very longer time from a very industry based perspective. But adaptability is also one of the most important criteria, because this is something I learned from IIT, and I also have observed in my company as well. Because a lot of projects that any company you get a client, you have to finally solve something for them or what they expect. Now you can't say that I don't know this is not my area, this is not my forte, and I can't really do this. You have to do it, that's all. So in such cases you have to be very, very flexible, and that's where being open to learning comes in very is very, very good, because you have to ultimately solve for them, because they are not able to solve it. They are coming to you with a problem, so you have to do the necessary reading, whatever is required, and you have to solve it at the end of the day and give it to them. So that is something that everybody should open with. The moment you are pushed across, or you're pushed to a place where you don't know anything about it, I would say that people should not get really perturbed about it, because I think you'll eventually find your comfort level and your and your flexibility around it. And I think this is a lot of people who are also working in some of my junior batches and my batchmates would have also experienced this. So you don't basically continue from where you left. You have to adapt and be in pace with the kind of developments that are going in the industrial field. And that's something also even all PhDs do. They don't. When you do a PhD, you don't just stick to academia. This is also kind of notion that I had when I was in my final year. So when you can get your PhD or MS, and if you can either go for higher postdoc, and you need a postdoc to get into academia. And whereas if you don't want to go in academia, you can use your PhD, and there are a lot of industries which hire PhD people. You have a lot of chemical and pharma industries who are on the lookout constantly for doctorate people. So these are some of the options that you can also explore. So coming to that, where I left off, so you have to be adaptable because a lot of problems are you going to pose when you're working are going to be very, very new, and you have to be adaptable to it. And I think that's when the real learning happens, because when you're posed with something that I think it's easier to solve, whereas when you're left out alone, you just have to find your way. You just have to swim your way back. And more often than not, in all these industrial scenarios, you are basically thrown into the water, and you just have to swim your way out. So that's a very good skill set to have. And it shows you that you are daring, and no matter whatever kind of problems you deal with, I think you'll always have your own approach to it. The next aspect that I would also like to talk is so I think that was the last topic I wanted to talk on. So adaptability, like I earlier said, is one of the good things to happen. It's one of the good things to have, because all these kind of industrial problems, or even be it research, all comes from being flexible. Not everybody solves the same thing. People solve different things. People are on the lookout for different problems, different solutions to their problems. So it's important to be open to all this, and at the same time make sure that you enjoy what you're doing. I had one more thing just to address it to everybody, that those who are juniors especially, and if you're somebody who's decided to work in a chemical or in a core or a non-core, just make sure that you're not driven by the aspect of switching jobs. So while it is good, while I said switching fields is also good, make sure you don't do it too often, because it kind of sends a very wrong message. Do it only if you are unhappy. If you don't like doing what you're doing, then you should definitely switch. Or if you think you are stuck in a place for a very long time, then you're not making enough progress, then yes, you should switch. But then don't be pressurized by your peers, who are switching to a different company in 2 years, 3 years, a year and a half. Yes, sorry, of course, before this pre-corona times, offers are very lucrative. I don't know how things are going to be after this corona is over. There's a talk of recession and other things going on, but just make sure that you enjoy what you're doing. And if you do enjoy what you're doing, then don't be in a hurry to switch, because I've also seen that this is something I've observed very commonly, to really just because you've spent 2 years and you want to switch, you want a better pay, you want to work on a better project, or whatever it could be. Just don't do it hastily. Don't do it for the need of doing it. That is something I always did not want to do. That even though I might get paid, even if I quit, a lot better, but I enjoy what I do, and I think that's very important. You should like what you're doing. You should go to work or to lab or wherever you're going with a smile. I think it makes a lot of difference in the kind of work you do, in the kind of value you put for yourself and for the company. Because at the end of the day, no matter wherever you are, I think you would want to develop yourself, and you would also want to contribute equally to your company. And so that is something that everybody should take a note of, because I see that a lot of people often switch a lot, and then you are left, in the dark as to what you really did, by switching in all those years. And there's no hope that, even in the new place that you are extremely happy. You might have just switched for a better pay, but then you might not be happy. Whereas you might have gotten a little pay, but you're happy with what you're doing. So don't take these kind of decisions very hastily, because if you like what you're doing, I think you should continue doing it unless you feel very bored of it, or you want to explore something more. I think only then you should be trying different options. So don't take these decisions hastily. I am almost done. I had a couple of points to address. I have addressed them. And if there's any questions from your side, I'm more than happy to answer it.
Yeah, Shweta, that's thanks. Good. This is the longest period where you have not smiled. So let it be so. I will ask people to put their questions on the chat window so that you can take it up. So whoever has questions, kindly put on the chat window. In the meantime, the questions come on the chat window. I just want to, for the benefit of the students, what is this data science is all about? Can you tell in a fashion so that the current second, third, and final years can understand?
Yeah. So it basically involves interpreting everything from data. Let me first jump into the kind of techniques that we use so that people are not carried away by the jargons and the kind of jargons that are floating around. Pretty much, it's all about statistics. It's all about linear algebra, a lot of optimization, definitely. And there was like machine learning that you would have often heard, right? So all these are a combination of statistics, linear algebra, optimization. There's something called predictive modeling, which deals with a whole lot of linear regression. You would have learned linear regression somewhere in your chemical engineer. You know how to regress given a set of X, given a set of Y. Can I predict, Y, right? You would have arrived at a model. All these are nothing but Y equal to mx plus c. That's it. Equation of a straight line, right? So all these are, that's after actually I switched to data science that I realized that all these are things that we've already learned, right? It's just that in different industries, in different areas, these things are used very, very differently. And that it's actually very simple to understand. But the kind of value they offer to your interpretation is very good. So data science is basically the art of interpreting from the data. It is, you make all your inferences, all your analysis from the data using all these techniques. That's all about it. And you do that because all these theoretical models sometimes don't capture the market dynamics. And these are the market dynamics are only captured when you have the data. So if I would like to predict something like 3 months from now or 6 months from now, then I need to look at data like 3 months or 6 months from the past, right? And it's also not a good idea to basically look at like 1 year and then predict the next 6 months, because things could have changed. So I'm like more looking to a window where I know that these trends would have happened, and I'm trying to predict the next 6 months. So all these are concepts that we've already learned in some way or the other. You would have learned linear algebra, but then whole point is how do you apply it? And I think that's where data science comes in, right? We all have learned eigenvalue, we all have learned eigenvectors, we have all learned what does mean, median, mode mean. But then I think more, even in school, we are never taught like how to apply all these things. I think that's the kind of learning that you should look for, more than theoretical based learning. You should look at the application perspective. I know it's very easy to say, it comes with a lot of practice, but I think you should first be, every time you make something, just keep asking why we are doing this, why we are doing it. I think you will eventually get there where you basically find an answer for yourself. So data science is basically, I'm just drawing interpretations from my data using a set of techniques. Yeah, I just wanted to put it simply, in simple terms.
Yeah, there are questions in the chat. You can go one by one. Just to read the question. so that while answering also we know that. So you have to start from the question of Srivatsa.
Yeah, Srivatsa Vardarajan. He says, I'm currently doing the data science for engineers course from NPTEL by IIT Madras. And can you elaborate on how you've used data science and ML in chemical engineering? Definitely. So there was one of this chemical engineering company who came to us, and they basically had a crack prediction. Okay, they were manufacturing steel bricks or steel rods, and they wanted to basically predict. Can I predict all these the cracks that could happen given a certain set of parameters, length, breadth, and all. And they had given us some heat information about it, and some information on how do these cracks usually occur, right? And what is the length, what is the width, what is the height, everything. So yeah, this was one from them, and we had gotten data from them, and we had actually built a model that basically tells you how to predict the crack, right? And this is from I think from a steel plant. I don't want to mention the name of the steel plant because we have an NDA with them, and this was just one of the many problems. And I just wanted to give you a small example of how do we use. You have to take into all the consideration. You take into consideration the temperature, the way they are doing it. A lot of fluid mechanics actually comes into this because you are piping fluids through it. You have to account for contraction, expansion, and all these coefficients. So that is one example on how would you use data science and machine learning. So yes, so this is a problem, but then we used a lot of data science and machine learning, and you have a lot of these data, and you are using machine learning. Since you said machine learning, we have been using some of these classification algorithms first to predict whether a certain brick or a certain bar could have a crack or not, given the input set of data. Ariyama Narayanan, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. I want kind of data. I want to know what kind of data you deal with and what kind of industries do you consult. So we don't consult industries. Consulting is done by a parent company, GAN Data. What we do is we do something like a hand-holding, right? The concerned client comes with a problem. They also do a course with us so that we get in talking the same jargon. And they basically do a hand holding. So at the end of the day, all these industries have to become independent, right? They have to start solving their own problems. That's what they are paid to do. So we do something called a hand holding. This is something like a guided sessions. We get the problem for them. They pose it to us. We give them a few suggestions on how they could proceed. And then, iteratively, these things keep going on. And then finally, we help them arrive at a solution which is acceptable. So that is the kind of work we do. We deal with chemical industries, automotive, not just automotive, and we do manufacturing. We've done defense. We've done it for DRDO, and we've also done it for Navy. So these are some of the broader aspects of clients that we have. Just a very diverse set of industries that we deal with. Shravani has a question. Can you please throw some light on Six Sigma course? Now, I have not done Six Sigma course much. I have not a great idea on it. So because I don't have a very good idea about it, I would not like to address it. But let me find something and I'll probably get your email ID and I'll ping you with some links where you can understand it better. I've not done a Six Sigma course and I don't know all the aspects of a Six Sigma course. I know only one or two. So I would not want to touch it now because I don't have a great understanding about it. So whenever I do, I'll get your email ID. I'll send across a few links for you to read up and understand. I also, yes, sir, we do. And okay. So Naren sir's question is that, yes, we do take in a lot of interviews as a part of a company, and we are looking for engineers across streams. What are the specific skill sets that you are looking for when you conduct the interview, both from theoretical, both from return and face-to-face? Written, the kind of questions we give is mostly testing your fundamentals, right? Some very aptitude based, and some of I mean, depends. We are keeping an open interview for all departments across, so we try to keep it as generic as possible. And we do give a lot of aptitude based, some programming based, and a lot of fundamentals. You know, the mathematical kind of foundations you have, linear algebra, statistics, all these kind of questions. With respect to programming, we don't expect you to learn any specific programming. I mean, whatever we are doing, but we would be very happy to hire people who have a good understanding of a programming language. Just from a logical part, it could be C, C++, Java, anything, any of these is fine. But then to understand what kind of really goes about, how does programming go about, a fair idea. We don't expect you to be pros at it, but yes, a good programming skill is always appreciated. Sai Anand hopes that arising out of passion is in direct contradiction. I don't have an answer to this side. This is just too difficult a question. I mean, as students, we thought joining core was ultimate, but I mean, as students, we thought joining core was the ultimate, but once there's some aspects might not be so powerful. Yes, all of us, I think, who join as engineers think we are going to graduate as engineers, right? It ultimately boils down to whether you want to be or not. I don't think there's a better answer to your question. But sorry, why do you post such questions? Like, why do you play with English, man? Just keep it simple. I have to like go back and read it like 100 times to understand what you asked.
It is Sai Ananda, Shweta.
Yes, sir.
No, it is Ashwin. He just used.
I am skipping this question.
We all sincerely doubt it. We know you wrote it.
Yeah, I mean, who plays with words like these? Come on.
No,
Lokesh, I'm
definitely
coming
not
to
in
your
this.
question. I'm coming to your question, Lokesh. Mute yourselves. The transition from fluid mechanics to data science smooth? Was it well thought move or was rather sudden? Also, how content are you with your current position? What do you aspire in the future? The transition is never smooth, Lokesh. Whenever you want to switch, it's that's the kind of mentality we have. It's also because from a very risk perspective, you're not very sure of. See, for me, as new as fluid mechanics was, even data science was that new till I started exploring on my own. So transitions in general are never smooth unless you are quitting and you want to join a new job. Only those kind of transitions you want to make it seamless. Trust me, apart from that, none of these transitions are smooth. Fluid mechanics, moving from fluid mechanics to data science perspective was in general not smooth because I did not know what data science was when I joined. Of course, I did a lot of reading by myself, but I think till you get into what you are doing hands-on, there's no way of knowing what data science is. So my transition was definitely not smooth because I've given a 3-month period to prove myself. So I wouldn't say it was definitely smooth. So none of the transitions are smooth, but I think ultimately you have to find your own path to find your way out. And I think that's where the interest and the challenge lies. And only when you do it yourself that you basically end up learning a lot. So transitions are never smooth, to answer your question. It was not a well thought move as well. And it was sudden. I was not sure because I knew that I was stuck in one place for a very long time, not having made enough progress. I knew that nothing new was happening. Things were not getting sorted out. So it was, I knew that I wanted something else, but I wasn't very sure of now what. So it was not a well thought move. And at that time, data science was still, new. At least in India, it was. Except for one of my friend who's already in this field, and he said, please go ahead, take it. Of course, if you don't like it, you can always change and come back. So yeah, it was not a well thought move. It was sudden. I had forwarded my resume to somebody else, and then she said, look, there's something like this, but it's not fully like project based or hands-on based. But yes, it looks good from my experience. So yeah, so that's when things happened. I'm very happy with what I am been doing. I'm very contented, in fact, because I feel that some of my peers or mostly in general from a very project-based industrial perspective, are always bounded to timelines. Not just timelines on the kind of techniques you can use and the kind of methods you are used. I am being in a very training and partly education-based industry. I am not bound to any kind of timelines, right? We do have courses, we have to stick to what we do, but all that is well prepared and delivered. And I'm so that the kind of flexibility, the kind of exposure that I'm getting, I'm very sure that a lot of people have not been getting it. So I'm very, very thankful indeed for that. And yes, so I think I'm very happy being where I am, because I have learned a lot more compared to what I thought I would when I joined this company. And yes, yeah, so that's about it. I'm very happy about it. And the one good thing I'm happy about it definitely in my job is that I always get to learn a lot, and I'm very happy about being where I am. And it's basically broadened my perspective and understanding. Yeah, so that's to answer your question. I don't have any current aspirations, but yeah, there are some professional aspirations that I have on what kind of work I should be doing, on what to deliver or how to deliver it, and what are the kind of advanced data science things, advanced data science techniques, or kind of topics that you can learn or bring around. So I have those kinds of aspirations, but nothing big as of now, to answer your question. Thanks, Lokesh. I hope I've answered it. Get lost, Sai. How was your experience of final year semester project solving the simplified Navier-Stokes equation using stream function by coding yourself? Yes. The experience, the kind of exposure, like I earlier said, was very, very great. You are introduced to new things. You are guided for some time, and then you are left alone. So it sort of broadens your idea. You are like responsible for the kind of results you deliver. Not only that, that is where I was actually exposed to reading and learning. Not learning for exams, but actually learning, understanding what goes on in the kind of research areas that you are being dealing with. And some way along the line, these reading and these learnings always come in handy. Now, till in college, we always used to put night out. I know some of you still do, just the day or two before exam. Some people like Ashwin forget to get up and come to the exam itself. Yes, some of you are that. I was also like that. And so we basically just used to read and just do it, except for probably fluid mechanics, except for probably Naren sir's subjects, I should say. I really didn't have much of an interest of reading up front and understanding what's really happening. I really didn't care. Let's just be honest. I think most of us really didn't care. I personally loved Naren sir's subject because of the way he teaches it. And only for those, I used to probably read extra. Apart from that, I don't think I've read anything extra, even in the last semester. So the coding was very, very challenging. Some of the base templates was provided to us. One very interesting thing was Apurva. I don't know if you remember this. We had almost solved the problem by mid of Jan, and we were expecting 100% result. Something called, I didn't know that when you use all these models to solve your equations, there's something called an error percentage, right? You have values, you have what your model predicts. Now, basically, you don't want the model and the values that you have to be really far apart, right? So basically, what you have and what you predict, that difference is the error. Okay. Now, error was well within 0.1%. Trust me, not even 1%, 0.1%. And Apurva and I were basically struggling for around a month with this. We had, I think, solved the problem by beginning of Jan, and Feb mid was when our project was getting over. And by the time we finished it, towards the end of our project, I think somewhere around end of Jan, that's when one of our seniors reviewed our work, right? We were always coming to the end. They wanted us to present, and somebody sat with us and reviewed. He said that this is really good. This model is very good. It has an error within 1.1%. So trust me, till we went there, we didn't even know that an error can be there between models and between what the value should actually be.
Yeah.
So I think that is kind of that learning. I'm still keeping it with me. Even now, I use it, and I think that was, I think, the biggest eye opener for me and Apurva. And like we just told probably we should have reached out for help much earlier, and we could have solved more problems while during a stay there. But I think nevertheless we still learned what we learned, because I think if you probably don't do it, then if if my seniors hadn't taken the time out to basically review our work, and I think even then we would not have understood that there's something like an error and a model can have. So a model always has error, and if it's within the reasonable limits, then your model is considered good. So I think that was a take home for me. Like that was like the biggest learning from that internship. And there are other things like dimensionalization, things like that I learned. Why you should dimensionalize, why you should normalize, all these things that I learned. But for me, I think that error between the model and the theoretical model and the programming based approach, that is the biggest eye opener. I still remember it because it was, it's been, I think, almost 6 years, but I still remember it because it was like, why were we stuck here for almost like a month? We should have asked somebody sooner so that we could have worked on more things. Apurva, I don't know if you remember this. You remember this?
I do.
Yeah, it was towards the end.
I do. I remember
Yeah.
all those days on the blackboard when we were trying to minimize the thing.
Yeah. So during our, just adding one more thing, we actually had to even derive. You were given a simple Navier-Stokes equation. We had to arrive at our model by ourselves. So the coding part is after you arrive at an equation, right? So we started with Navier-Stokes. We had some boundary conditions. We put all in that. We had arrived. We saw the differential equation, and then
Yeah, Shweta.
yes, sir.
Yeah, just a small interruption. I just
Sorry.
want to share a screen, and I want you to continue after the screen.
Sure.
Okay, is my screen shared?
I am not able to see your screen. Just a second.
You have to click it. Yeah, is my screen shared?
Yeah, it is, sir.
Yeah, can you identify these pages?
Yes, it's Apurva's writing.
So can you?
Oh my God, I wrote this.
Yeah, so can you identify this?
Yeah, it's a problem. Yeah, so when I was said you have to derive.
This was our Navier-Stokes a fourth order derivative. Yeah, I remember.
So yeah, this is a condition, the grid condition to solve the two-phase slug flow case.
Yeah. So you can continue.
Thank you, sir. I didn't know you
My
have
God.
all this slide.
Yeah. Thank
Thank you
sir.
so much. So yes, so this was the kind of learning that we had, and pretty much if you see in few places, we've used central difference or forward or backward difference, one of these, and that's actually knew what forward difference, backward difference, central difference mean and why they are used, when they are used. Believe us, we are not lying. we didn't even understand or we didn't even know when to use all of these. And I think we've come a long way from where we started. So now if somebody asks me or, where do you use central difference, I at least have something to quote from. So yeah, so I think, one thing to appreciate of the kind of learning and exposure we both had during our internship is that none of our seniors in the lab laughed at us, right? None of them mocked us. They were all into their MS and PhDs. There were some BTech people from different institutes, from different IITs who were very, very helpful, who were at the same age of us, in the same level of us, but were very helpful. And none of our seniors mocked at us. None of them, said, you don't even know this. You are how are you going to graduate? Nobody had asked this. And we were very shy to actually go approach them and tell them that, look, we didn't understand. Because I think everybody comes from the same, barring a few, I think most of them came from the same learning where, when they never understood, they put in the time and effort to understand. And they also made sure that we understood. So till going there, Apurva and I were given a paper to read, and they said something central difference. We went back, thanks to Google. We went Googled forward difference. We'd even forgotten by then what forward difference, central difference meant. And I think the mentor or the professor, I don't remember, told us please use central difference for this. And then I'm like, how the hell do you convert a different equation to a central difference equation? And how do you basically code it? So we had no idea of, when you start with Navier-Stokes equation, how do you code it, right? It's just so hard. What do you really code? What is there to code? I mean, at the end of the day, what is there to code? How do you break it up? We had no clue. And I think all that you see, that screenshot, and thank you so much. I think you brought in some fond memories of our time from the internship. So we did this. We still had some more doubts. So we had actually mailed Naren sir about it, and he had also helped in a lot for us. So this derivation we did on our own. We were guided in a few places about boundary conditions and the kind of technique to use. But I think I'm happy that we did it. Apurva and I did this together. And I think we had a lot of fun learning, doing what we do. I mean, I know most of us don't know neither me or Apurva. I don't know about Apurva. I can talk for myself, definitely. I don't do these kind of things anymore. But I think it's always, once you learn, there's no unlearning done there. So even you might not use it for 10 years and suddenly, you have to use it, you use it, that's all. And I think even after 10 years, if you just read, I think it all comes back. So thank you, Naren sir, for sharing that. I think that was one of the other big learning that we had at our time in IIT Madras. And after that, I did a lot of these over there. And yes. I think there's one more question from Naren sir.
There's one before also of Sai Anand, which you can answer. This is a simple question.
Can you elaborate as a data analyst the difference between yeah. So causality and correlation. I think this is more of an open-ended debate. Like, we always had debates on these. Correlation, yes, two trends that, two kind of parameters, I would say. When they go hand in hand, right? And by hand in hand, I really don't mean, one increase, the other decrease, one decreases, the other decrease. It could be inversely as well, right? So just to put it in simple terms, that kind of a behavior, we call it a correlation. Whenever variable or whenever there is data with parameters like this, you tend to check correlation, whether they are strongly correlated. Why do you need to do this? It's because there's a lot of perspective about it. One is we're looking, when you say model, you're trying to solve something, you have a model. You're looking at a model with as many less parameters as possible. You don't want to keep it too complex and you don't want to keep it too simple. The moment you have a lot of parameters in your model, you're keeping it too complex. The moment you have very few parameters, you're keeping it too simple. So there's always an optimum point where you want to keep. There are metrics to identify when to stop or when to add, in terms of model complexity, when to add or when to stop, all these things. So that is one thing. You don't want to include variables which are highly correlated. You don't want to keep adding the same kind of information to your model. You basically want to get a diverse set of information. At the same time, also make sure that your model is fairly good, not too simple or not too complex. Just to give you a small intuition, if I take a car, I have age of the car, and let's say I have a price, right? When age of the car increases, the price decreases. I call them as being negatively correlated, right? When one increases, the other decreases. So this is just a small example. You don't want to basically use all these kinds of variables that you have in your model. You want to keep it as simple as possible, but at the same time, not too simple. The second perspective of why you need to identify variables which are correlated is from a business aspect. So I had given you a very simple example. Let's take something from an industrial perspective, right? I am hiring so let's just take temperature and pressure, for instance, and for a given set of conditions, temperature and pressure are correlated. So if I'm investing some money to buy a gadget that measures temperature, and from my earlier knowledge, I already know that, let's say, this temperature and this pressure always goes hand in hand. When one increases, the other decreases, right? So in those cases, I don't want to invest in more money to buy a gadget to measure the pressure. I want to basically, make one investment and make sure that, I make the best out of it. And talking in terms of cost, you also need to employ labor to make sure that these things are measured. So from a business, from a cost perspective, identifying these variables which are correlated is good. But yeah, so they to make your entire process cost effective, because you don't get data till you collect it, and to collect it you might have to invest some money, you have to invest time, effort, everything into it. Yeah, equipments if required. So like given some data you want to, so earlier, given an earlier data, you want to basically identify if there are two parameters that could go hand in hand. If yes, then I would like to incorporate only one parameter of it, from a cost perspective and from a model complexity perspective. Not there could also be always be result, and there could always be correlation leads to causality, is that is the kind of question that Sai has asked. Correlation doesn't always cause, correlation could lead to causality but not vice versa, because not all the effects that you see are because of correlation, but whatever you see because of a certain set of causes, certain set of outcomes that can happen because of correlation, but not the other way around. Naren sir's question was, from learning a new thing, now you've grown where you have a video session as part of the data mining course that is aired on NPTEL Swayam. So this should have a great happiness. Can you share that? Yes. I don't remember the name. The first, Srivatsan Vardarajan, right? He is doing an NPTEL course, for which I had basically recorded a few hands-on sessions for that, and now I actually do it on a more regular basis in-house as well. So talking first about NPTEL, NPTEL was basically a way to block all. I don't know if it still happens. People have an Android phone, but when I was there in fourth year, not many had an Android phone. So whenever you go to Facebook, beyond some time, it used to redirect you to NPTEL. So that's my best experience of NPTEL. And none of those times, whenever it has redirected me to NPTEL, I have never bothered to log in. I have never bothered to basically see what are the kind of courses. Probably I would have learned a lot if I had, but I think most of us never cared about it. So once and many years later, I also got an opportunity to be on it, which is very, I don't know what to call it, whether it's irony or whether it was a punishment, but the experience was very, very different. It was very good because when you were trying to put across, most of these courses that you see, some of the courses are very theoretical, and some of the courses on NPTEL have a very practical session based. The course that we gave was one of the practical based courses where some theory is taught, and the entire thing is altogether how do you put it in application, right? And this is where, like I earlier said, application plays a very great role, because it's not just easy to understand, right? I learned central difference, but if I have no clue how to use it, then there's no point in learning it. So we made sure that we give a holistic course. That was the first online course we ever did, and we gave a course where I had to record a few lectures based on the theory sessions and give a few examples of it using a specific programming tool that was RStudio. And that experience was very, very different. When you're talking, addressing a face-to-face session, addressing a class, webinar, everything is very easy. The moment you go on record, even you start doubting what you are trying to say. It's very hard. The recording part was very hard. It was very nice because that is actually where I had made sure that I keep things simple, because you're trying to reach a large number of audience who may have little or no experience in data science. So I had to break down pretty much all my sentences, all the concepts, and not only just in terms of narrating it or in terms of the slides also that I have used. So it was a very, very good journey because just because you know something, you don't have to always complicate the explanation. I learned that you can keep things very simple and at the same time convey a very strong point or a very strong theoretical concept. So that was my first experience of breaking down, simplifying things, because it's very important to keep things simple. to understand what you have and bridge the gap between theory and the practical aspect of it. That was very hard. But more harder than that was actually putting it across on recording. And we used to basically, I remember that we used to record for almost 40 minutes. And once the video, after the first, I get the first cut of the video, and there are certain professionals who have no idea of data science. They give us the first cut of the video. And I still had like 40 minutes of the video, and I had to cut it and bring it to 20 sensible minutes with all the ers and the r's and all that removed. So it's very hard to put across a point in a very simple manner. It was a very, very fruitful journey. I think it's, it has taught me in terms of presentation, it's given me a very different aspect of, how you can put it to a diverse set of masses. Put across a point. Of course, not all of these people enjoy a very simplified explanation. Some want like, that's all, is that all? We expected more, but of course you keep going back and modifying it. So whenever we make sure that whenever we do something online, we try to break it as simple as possible, because there's no reiterating it about it, right? Because you can't go back and talk to them or talk to the people unless they mail you. You have no clue on what they've understood. So you try to be as light as possible and as simple as possible to put forth that point. So I think that was one good journey, because that's when I really learned to simplify what I would want to say. And only when you simplify your explanations can you even reach across a varied set of audience. So I think the beauty lies in keeping things simple. And I think I've strongly started to believe that after that online set of lectures. So that journey was very different. I don't have words to explain it, because it was very stressful, because we had to meet a certain set of deadlines. But then at the same time, you learn without knowing that you've learned it. So yeah, so that was it was very fruitful for me. Hariharan Shivakumar has a question. Can you please share your experience of coming out of comfort zone, being spoon-fed in IIT? How did you manage to learn things you never knew about before without anybody's help? Okay, in IIT, you are never spoon-fed. You are always left alone on your own to learn. So I had a taste of how things can be when you're new to something. I might have still had some experience of doing things, of some understanding from chemical engineering. So I survived pretty much as a project associate. But trust me, once you step out of college, you are never spoon-fed. I don't know in which year you are. Probably you'll realize the moment you step out. Not even in home you are spoon-fed. Let alone college or internships. So you're never spoon-fed in IITs. There is somebody to always guide you. So if you ask for help, you will always get it. I strongly believe in that. I think a lot of us are very, we have inhibitions on whether you can, really ask people for help. No, you should definitely ask people for help, because otherwise you are just stuck, you're left in the dark. And you should not always go and ask, but you should always make sure that you put enough effort into learning it. Yes, you can always go and ask for help. So yes, people were there to help us, but I think learning comes when you put an effort to understand and read. So it was, reading was definitely out of my comfort zone, because I never touched the book when I was in Shastra, frankly. Just before the exams, we used to do and close. After the exam, we never touched it. So reading was not my comfort zone. I'm not a voracious reader as well outside. Like, I don't read fictions or novels. I'm more of a hands-on person. So yes, so reading it's like a punishment to me, unless you are really forced to. I never read. But then things changed. Now I still don't read novels, but I am more inclined to read things technically to learn, and so that I can implement and try out different techniques. It was good. Coming out of the comfort zone in IIT, comfort zone, it became comfortable because I stayed there for a longer time. But other than that, I think it was also not my comfort zone, but I managed my way around it. So I already had an experience of how would things be if you pose a different question, if you pose a different problem. How do you manage your way around it? In the company, it was a bit hard when I joined, because some of my colleagues were also new to data science. But then, yes, they made sure that I also understood. I think there's enough material available online on data science, and I think everybody has either a blog or there are different community blogs that you can read. But yes, it is very, very comfortable. I mean, when you start reading, you basically start understanding it. So I am pretty much managed because I started reading it. I actually went back to linear algebra, the Gilbert-Strang book of linear algebra, and then I started from scratch. So if you want to understand something, you have to start from scratch. Yes, I think eventually when you start working with it a lot more, you will find your way out. Yeah, I had to prove myself in 3 years because that was my probatory period, and till they felt that I didn't bring in a value, I mean, there was a chance that was just the other part of it. But yeah, then I mean, over the 3 months where I had to really, prove myself out, I really enjoyed doing what I did. I mean, there is a total different perspective of learning I learned. Be it eigenvalue, linear algebra, statistics. I didn't know you can infer so much out of mean, median, and mode, man. Come on. I know that mean is average, median is something, but I mean, to interpret, if I give you a mean or median, I didn't know what trends could be there in data. So those kind of things were very, very interesting, and I learned a lot more because I made sure that I read. Like I earlier said, my job also gives me the flexibility to read, to discover new things, and that's one thing I am thankful for. I wouldn't say I got where I got without any help, because I had my colleagues who kind of lifted me up, and who shared some of their intel. We used to have some healthy discussions over lunch as well. So talking helps, reading helps, definitely. Even if you're not a voracious reader, even if you don't read novels, I think, yes, technical reading is good. It kind of opens your eyes and on what you've been working on. All the best. Hariharan, you're doing your master's. Just to know what working in IIT means like. This is what it looks like. Yeah. So all the very best if you're aspiring to go there. I think we stop.
So yeah. So I think this is again a long session. So it's very nice to have seen you spoken continuously. That's a record which your own classmates will now share in the closing. Mark, I will, I think, start with, I would request Apurva to probably say how, Apurva, you can unmute?
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
You can say now what is your co-traveler all through your 4 years have done on this alumni meet now.
So Shweta is one of those people who is very persistent at what she does. That is something I found out in the beginning, but that was emphasized when we were doing our project. There were days when we had to sit and slog figuring out fourth order differential equations, because in college we had not done anything more than second order. But then we spent 3-4 hours every day. There was a classroom attached to our lab, and we used to pick up a chalk, and both of us used to sit there undisturbed for 4-5 hours and try to solve it. And this happened several days. And there are days I have given up. I was like, okay, Shweta, I can't do this anymore. She's like, no, take a break. Let's go have chai. Come back. We can do this. So it's her persistence that something I still have to learn from her. And she's always happy no matter what. Mostly always happy.
Apurva is also a math freak. So till she solves a math problem, she can't sleep. I am giving you this.
That is another problem I have.
We solved that problem because I was persistent, and it was a math problem, and she just could not accept it, that without solving it, she could never sleep. And she didn't really sleep. She lived on coffee pretty much the whole time.
Yeah, and she's always happy no matter what. Like 90% of the times you will see her with a smile on her face, no matter what is happening around her. There could be like a fire or an earthquake around her, and Shweta will be still happy and figuring out the best of what is happening. And those are some amazing qualities she has. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So anybody else? So anybody else from the 2014 batch who wants to speak? Yeah, I'm not getting it.
Hello.
I don't get it, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, who is that?
So
I'm hearing someone.
Maggie.
Yeah, Ashwin. Yeah, okay.
So I'm actually Sai. It's like I just want to clarify. Like he's getting properly roasted because of the questions that he asked. Actually, it was me who asked, but let's couple of words about today's speaker. Shweta is. We all knew Shweta as the happiness machine. So yes, exactly. So, like seeing Shweta go an hour and a half with such seriousness, uh, it's something that we have been waiting on some level, but we also kind of hoped it never happened because we always miss her laughter.
No, she will still
Anyway,
laugh. You just have to say something mildly funny.
yeah,
Yeah, there
like
we
that.
go. There we go.
So, Shweta, wonderful talk. I think data analyst. There are several uh, misinformation about data analysts currently. I mean, it's such an irony that people who work in data have false data published about them a lot. Like there are, I'm sometimes very saddened to see several of these ads that pop up that says that data analysis has powers that it doesn't, or it's being suddenly marketed as a trend a lot of times. So. Thank you so much for coming out and putting out some relevant information on this field. So, thank you so much. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Ashwin. We'll take it over the Google chats in some time.
Yeah, thank you, Ashwin. Yeah. So anybody from the current students wants to speak as a concluding session? Anybody from the current students? Yeah. Dharini, you can speak. Yeah, Balki,
Sir,
you
am I
want to speak?
audible?
You can also.
Sir, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible. You are audible.
Akka, thanks a lot for today's talk. You said in between the talk that Lokesh and Anirudh came to IITM
Yeah, I think you
workshop.
also
Yes,
came, right? Dharini, I
yes,
remember your
Akka,
face.
yes, Akka. We came as a group of 4 and along with our seniors too. I hope you remember us. That
Yeah.
day itself, I asked you how can we implement this data analysis in chemical engineering, and you said many ideas too. And I have to say this specifically. I should use this chance that we had a great time with you in the workshop. You really taught well among all the trainers. And particularly in today's talk, we got to know some ideas of switching in all the fields. It will really give us ideas. Cause we people stick to something which we couldn't do after many tries. I'm not saying in the job part alone. I'm saying generally in whatever work we do, we will stick in one part and alone until we arrive, and we won't focus on the other things that are available. As you said, we should try in all the fields, and then only we'll be knowing where we go wrong and what suits us and what gives us satisfaction. We will implement from now on. And thanks for sharing all your experience right from your final year project till NPTEL work so patiently. Thank you so
No
much,
problem,
Akka.
Dharini. Pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much. I hope you had a great time. I didn't bore you, of
Yeah.
course. I hope so.
Yeah,
Yes,
Balki
Akka,
wants to
sure.
talk. Yeah, thanks, Dharini. Balki wants to talk.
Ayyo,
Yes, sir. Can I
Yeah,
interrupt,
just
sir?
a minute. Yeah, just a minute. I'll just close. Shweta, the person who spoke now, Dharini, on final year, is having some faint traits of you. She also keeps smiling.
I
Okay,
think it's after
but
the workshop, sir. I think it's after the workshop.
but not to the level of hours like you. But you can ask her classmates.
No problem. I'll
Right.
train her. Dharini, please get in touch with me.
Right. Yeah,
Sir.
Balki, go ahead. Balki, go ahead.
எங்க பேட்ச்ல ஆக்சுவலா 2 பேரு, ஒன்னு ஸ்வேதா இன்னொன்னு மைத்ரே, 2 பேர் அப்படி டபுள் சைடு ஹூஃபர் மாதிரி, ஒரு பக்கம் இவ சிரிப்பா ஒரு பக்கம் அவ சிரிப்பா.
இல்லடா ராஜா விட்டேன், ராஜா மியூட்.
ராஜா தனியா புளிங்கிட்டு இருப்பான் லாஸ்ட் பெஞ்ச்ல.
Yeah, you carry on, Balki. Yeah, carry on.
So, Shweta, it was really a nice talk. So it was like very, very inspiring, and we never thought like you were such a serious girl, and you went through so much of such a serious things. Okay, so we all remember is that whatever happens, it's like Shweta, and then it never ends up.
Just a small pinch of everything.
So it was like really so good.
I
And
know you're
sir,
all talking very serious. I know there's a separate session after this.
sir, and also I want to like let know all the juniors that like 2 years before when I came to our department and like met with all the juniors, that time many were like
Yeah.
telling I want to get into some job which is paying at least some 40K, 50K. So to them, I want to address that. Okay, she is the person you can hold on. So she was into the job of data science. I think many data science was the I think
All
on
right, to
was
tell you,
paying
I started
good
at
pay.
20,000.
Array,
2016,
we
2016 when I joined it, I started at 20,000. Okay, so I don't think, yeah, I think it's
but
okay. I think you all learn the process. Yeah.
Yeah.
So whoever junior wants to earn something more than 30K in the beginning itself, you can try for data science. And if you want to try for data science, you can contact Shweta. So she can help you out, like how to approach the job with like what are the sets of skills you need, and I
Right.
also insist that please try to learn either Python or MATLAB. So that is like very mandatory in this situation.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think it's
thank
good
you.
to revamp the programming course in first year itself. I feel like I don't know if Python been introduced.
So Python is not there as part of all the engineering programs. Only the circuit and the computer science branches have.
Okay.
I would be happy to tell that actually for some time for the cache, I am still thinking on whether to have both Scilab and Python. But for
Oh
that,
yes,
I
sir.
have to
Have both,
first,
sir. Please,
yeah.
because
But
Yeah, I
for that,
think yeah.
yeah, but we have a lot of other time constraints and everything because many people are not having exposure to spreadsheets itself. So without having spreadsheets directly jumping into programming is something I'm in dilemma. But I'm very happy to learn Python. I actually enrolled in the course and I actually saw your video. So, so that was
Is it,
also how I,
is it Python
yeah.
for data science?
Yeah, but
Okay.
then I didn't complete because I just want to quickly learn something. So that was very nice where your introduction video so that I could change some of my Scilab programs to Python so that in case if I introduce in cache, I should first know the syntax and those things. So
Sure,
that's
sure.
nice that my own student has grown to a level that and I can now learn programming from her. That's
I'm
that
still
The student has become the master. Thank you.
yeah.
I'm still following all your cache wherever I've lost marks because of programming, because of naming files. I'm still strictly following it. FYI.
Yeah. So Python, as you said, that is still in cards, but we have not introduced because of the kind of space that we because within the rigid curriculum. But I think it's just a matter of time. Maybe within 1 or 2 years, we will find some ways to use or include Python, or also include data science as an elective for all engineers. Data science as an elective for all engineers.
sir, has
Is
cache
it
been made compulsory? If not, that might
cache?
be a
No.
Yeah, cache is now a compulsory lab,
okay.
no
Good.
longer a
An
lucrative
elective. Okay.
elective like when
Okay.
you all had.
Sir, we
Uh,
were the best batch, sir. Come on, sir. We
yeah,
took actually out of interest. We know we get only C, but we still took it out of interest.
yeah, yeah. So that I recollect. So now it is all a compulsory course, compulsory lab course. Okay.
So I think that's good because I just wanted to add one more thing because there's a talk on data science. Just
Yeah.
don't get carried away. I mean, this is for students and for professors. If you are also following the trends, don't just get carried away by the kind of things that are happening around. Make sure you read a lot and then so I see that a lot. There's a whole different process for data science. You start with programming, there's you prepare the data. By preparing the data, I mean most of these data don't come in a very processing format. Getting to the end is the last part. I mean, there are a lot of challenges there when you kind of handle your data and prepare it to make it understandable to others. Those are like very important processes, and I feel that given all these machine learning, deep learning, big data, all these jargons, I think people are jumping to the last step. In fact, they're starting with the last step. I think this is something that should be avoided. Don't get carried away. Start fresh. Start simple. I think the only thing interested me the most was because I mean, from my own experience, I did want to keep things simple. I think modeling part, all these jargons can always be caught up later. But I think it's also important that if you're looking to be a data analyst, then you should understand that modeling is only 5% of the job. The remaining percent of the job is getting to the model. So yeah, so there is a huge process. Take some good articles, keep following, keep reading on what are the typical steps involved in data science problems, and don't just get carried away by words like machine learning, deep learning, big data, because they are still a later part of the problem, and getting there is the harder part. Yeah, this is something I just wanted to add from my experience of this. I come across people who say, "Can you teach us machine learning?" And I think there's no teaching. Just get there, and with the process, you automatically learn.
Yeah. So that's nice. So anybody else who wants to talk?
Yes, am I audible? Hello?
Yeah, Lokesh. Yeah, Lokesh, carry on.
Yes, sir. So, hi, Akka. I'm from 2020 batch. I was one of those who attended the predictive data analysis workshop last year in IIT Madras Research Park. So it was a really great thing that time because those 4-5 days of trainings, from beginning with Raghunathan sir's introduction to machine learning, and from there we had to learn all the basics of Python and even data science and data analysis. So yeah, that was one great learning session, and I had a lot to take away from that workshop, and I've still been able to be in touch with all the concepts, especially the cheat sheets and all you people have provided for us. So yeah, that being said, it was around last year and last May, and it was a really happy thing to see you again here on this alumni G-Meet. And also, it was more happy to note that you still remembered some of our names, and yeah, I also
I'm sorry,
remember,
I couldn't remember all.
yeah, at least some, but and also we even that time you were very interested to learn what's going on in the university, and now was Naren sir and our other faculty. So that indeed showed how rooted you are to our community, and that's actually a very good thing. Coming to today's talk, you spoke about pursuit of learning and adaptability. So these two things are something which I would like to take away, and enjoying what I am doing as of now, and also being open to explore to options. I think that's the biggest takeaway I have learned from today's session. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. Thanks, Lokesh, for sharing it. Is everybody there?
Yep.
Naren sir inga kaanum.
Okay, hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So is there any other comments? I think if there are no other comments, we can close the session. If there is anybody else who wants to talk.
Akka?
Yes.
Srivatsa.
Hi, I had looked up your profile on LinkedIn. I am from Shankara School as well.
Or for once, somebody says I looked up your profile in LinkedIn or not on Facebook. Thank you.
Okay. I am from Shankara School as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you so much for the session. Actually, it was really an eye opener because deep down, in our guts, we fear that we have only two choices: core or proper IT, corporate IT. But in your session, you have given us a hint that there's something called middle ground between those two. So thank you so much for that.
Very reason why I took this topic, because I know I'm fully not into, I'm not non-core, I'm somewhere in between, but I know that a lot of people out there are also in the same position that I was a few years back. So glad that this session helped you.
Yeah, good. So good, Srivatsa. So anybody else who wants to give comment, or shall we close? Anybody else? If somebody wants to speak, you can unmute and speak. Okay, so if there are none, thanks Shweta. So for a very very wonderful session, as all your batchmates, and we know that the laughing gas of the
இப்போ போய் நான் இன்னொரு செஷன் கண்டினியூ பண்ணுவோம் ஜி சாட்ல போய் அது வந்து ரோஸ்டிங்
the laughing gas of the batch, and it was very interesting, and I think you are neither in core nor in na that you have indeed become corona. You sit here, right.
I think we should everybody should find a middle ground. You cannot always take the same stand.
Yeah, so
you want middle ground, you can change quickly.
Right. So thanks for all, and I just want to stop recording, and I just have a request for all of you to stay back just for the other things. But thanks Shweta, and it was very nice, I would say, and thanks for all for watching. I'm just stopping the recording.
Yeah, thank you sir.